Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I'd like to announce an interesting little piece of news here, which is that for the first time in 9 years, it looks like median rents in Manhattan have dropped to under $3,000. They're at $2,990. I know, big discount, right? That's under 3,000, and this makes news. I kind of find it funny that this makes news, that you have an area where almost all the attractions are gone. Broadway, gone. Lots of the businesses, closed, working from home. Restaurants, sit outside on the street while it's 55 to 60 degrees. Many of the attractions that made this Manhattan for many people are gone. And I think, I've had this discussion with my friend who I've had on the channel every now and then for a live stream, Dr. Evil Genius. I'll put a link to his stuff down below. And, we'll go back and forth, and he'll say maybe this will be, rather than it being a terrible thing that people are leaving, maybe this will actually allow prices to come down to where the people who work here can actually afford to live here. I know, it's a crazy concept. Imagine if the people that actually did the work that made New York City something worthwhile could actually afford to live here, less than 6 people to a room. But this here is just like, it's not 3,000. We're going down to 2,990 when there's no attractions, when there's just all the things that made it worthwhile, including many of the economic drivers that actually made people able to justify spending $3,000 on a shoebox, are gone. That at this point in time, we're still at $2,990. I don't think this is amazing because it's a drop. Rather, I think it's amazing to show that even when you remove all the things that make Manhattan worth spending $3,000 on a shoebox for, that it still costs $3,000 in Manhattan to live in a shoebox. And I think it speaks to how ridiculous the real estate market in New York City is versus virtually any other part of the country, except perhaps certain areas like Cambridge, Massachusetts, or San Francisco, or where you have just ridiculously priced apartments and real estate. And one of the things that I find interesting is if you really take a look, the home prices themselves do not appear to have fell. Like I remember I was looking at this little house in Delaware. It listed for $674. It sold for $657. This one is pending. This place is. It is not 4,000 square feet. Like, look at the pictures. That's some real estate shit right there. It is pending. It was on the market for about I think like 3 to 6 months beforehand. At this house, this is the upvote house. I liked it. Erica didn't like it because she said it looks like a bunch of upvotes. I kind of like the upvotes. It is gone. And other houses like this that were, check this out. This was listed for sale at $573,000. It sold for $600K in Long Island. And one of the pieces of news that I also found interesting, because a lot of people have said people are looking to leave high tax liberal areas, is that, as you can see here, this is interesting. It says Long Island home prices kept climbing last month, hitting a new high in Suffolk County as the suburban home buying scramble extended into September. Homes in Suffolk sold for a median price of $464K, up 13% compared with a year earlier. They're talking about how the sale prices keep going up and up and up. And one of the interesting things is that if you take a look, Long Island is not exactly a cheap place. You have property taxes in many areas of Long Island where you're looking at 2.2%. That means that if you buy a home that's in the $600,000 range, you could easily be looking at an $1,100 a month bill, not for your mortgage, for your property tax. So after you spend your life savings to purchase a home, and then you spend thousands of dollars a month on a mortgage, you still have to give $1,100 a month, which remember, the property value goes up over time, so your tax goes up over time until you're dead. So you could easily be, old and be running out of money in your retirement and be at a point where you may be kicked out of your home because your property tax is greater than your income. I think what this shows is that people are not so much so moving away from places that necessarily represent their ideology or tax law or anything like that. I think people are simply moving based on lifestyle. Because if people were simply doing what I said in my comments all the time, which is, they're leaving these liberal high tax places, they would not be moving in droves to areas where your property tax is 15 to 20K a year for a house that's over 100 years old and not that impressive. I think people are simply choosing to leave places that have ridiculously high population densities when there is no longer a great reason to be there. I've heard people say a lot that if someone like me says they don't particularly like New York City, or if they want to leave New York City, that means that we're not real New Yorkers, that we were never real New Yorkers. And I've always disliked this characterization. When people say, well, the city had your back when you were down, so why don't you have its back now? You were never a real New Yorker. And one of the things that's always kind of driven me a little bit nuts with this is this whole concept that, the city had you when you were down, now you don't have it. I bring this up in a blog on my website from about 8 years ago, where when my business first opened, we were literally getting fines for somewhere in the $250 to $1,000 range that we'd have to fight to get a settlement on because of something as basic as a license number not being on a business card, instead of simply having them ask us in the store, hey, could you get a stamp and put that on there? By the way, it's got to be on your receipt and your business card, or else this is fine. No, they did just walk in and fine you $1,000. The thing with New York City, and it's always been this way as long as I've lived here, is it's kind of like dating someone who is crazy, who doesn't appreciate you for who you are, who is out of their mind and mean to your family, but really, really, really hot. Like, why you're there. You kind of hate yourself for the fact that you haven't broken up yet. And maybe a part of it is you don't think you'll be able to do better if you go somewhere else, and you think this is your last chance. It's not something where people are staying here because it's the greatest thing in the world. They were here for the money and the superficial things that came with a big city, like the selection of restaurants and the selection of stores and the selection of random clubs and venues. And the moment that stuff is gone, they are too. And the moment the money goes away, it doesn't really make sense to spend $3,000 to $5,000 a month for a shoebox. Now, does it? It doesn't really make sense to walk down a street where people are constantly bumping into you. Now, does it? It doesn't really make sense to have to deal with just all the garbage that you deal with if you live in Manhattan versus almost any other area, regardless of taxes or everything else. I'm here because the very, very high concentration and location of offices where people make exorbitantly high salaries and buy luxury Apple products, bars where they can get drunk and then spill crap on their machines when they get home because they're drunk, and universities which have people that use Apple products that are starting to experiment with alcohol that they're going to spill on their Apple product, are all jam-packed onto this teeny tiny island along with a lot of money. That's why I'm here, and also because I was born and raised here. I am not here because it is so amazing, and people who are real New Yorkers understand that. I am not here because I will get a $1,000 fine for not having a license number written on my business card or my POS receipt system 2 or 3 months after I open. I am not here because I will have 3 to 5 of my bikes stolen over the course of 7 years if I lock them outside, and if they're not able to steal it because they can't cut the lock, they will cut the gate off and take it along with the effing bike. I am not here because the neighborhood is so lovely that people will try to either sexually assault or take crap from my girlfriend and try to scam her at 1 a.m. while she's on her way home if I'm not walking with her. I'm not here because I pay about $2,000 for a shoebox in an over 100-year-old rundown building several blocks away from where there have been no less than 2 shootings in the past 2 weeks in my neighborhood. I'm not here because the scenery is beautiful, or the contractors are also honest, or the people are lovely and low stress, or there's great scenery, or our beaches are beautiful. No, I'm here because there's money. Let's be real here. I'm here because the high concentration of people means that it will be easier for me to find people who will be able to work in a specialized field like the one that I work in, where that it may be difficult to find that talent in a smaller town. But I am indeed a real New Yorker, because the real New Yorkers are the people who really know why they're here, not the people that have some sort of cockamamie dream who travel here and then feed themselves a line of bullshit about how it's so great to justify the fact that they moved away from their family and a great life to pursue their dream in a shithole. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think that what you're really seeing with this is that when the things that make Manhattan even like somewhat tolerable go away, that people start leaving in droves, and not because they're not real New Yorkers, but because people who are, quote, real New Yorkers, they know why they were here to begin with. They know why their family came here to begin with. And in many cases, they were here because there was something that was offered that made it worth the nightmare and hellscape that it is to live someplace where everything is so expensive, where people are jam-packed, where shit is nasty, where the city, if you run any type of small business whatsoever, is always on your back 24/7 looking for a new way to fuck you and take your money. And I think that it to me, honestly, I'm a little sad that 7 months into this, rent has dropped to like median price $29.90. Because when someone reached out to me and said that, like, you know, it's finally dropped below $3,000 for the first time in 9 years, it's now $29.90. I mean, in my opinion, this should be $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and people have always, you know, pushed back when I said this and said, "Well, Lewis, that no, the market will bring it down there. Don't be a socialist. Don't be a communist." How many vacancies are in New York City right now? How many apartments that are not used by anybody are available? How many of those apartments have been vacant for 2 or 3 or 5 years and will continue to be vacant? It's a fake market. I mean, you're more than welcome to have a sell price of, you know, $400 on your AMD stock. It doesn't actually mean it's worth that. It's worth what the highest bid is. And the highest bid right now seems to be considerably lower than $29.90. But you let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something.